Thank you, Randall, for that very kind introduction. And it sounds like everyone's been teeing up this moment, talking about startups, both from Carl and then Randall during his session. So I will, in fact, talk about startups. My job is about connecting MIT startups to industry. Specifically, what that means is connecting MIT startups. And I'm going to define this having an MIT connection, which means that at least one of the founder is either a faculty or alum or a research staff, or they've licensed technology from MIT. And as Randall mentioned as well, this program was started 7 years ago, and it was in response to corporates coming to MIT to meet with faculty. But then they would ask us, can I meet with that startup, and that startup, and that startup? And so we started tracking these startups on a spreadsheet initially. And then because of increasing interest, that spreadsheet became Startup Exchange. And so a demand that initially was small has now entirely shifted to the point where some of the corporates are coming exclusively to work with startups. The great majority of our 230 corporate members are coming to engage with startups in some capacity. And so through this talk, I'm going to try to explain why that might be. And so Randall covered this already, so this slide might go very quickly. But this is getting to the entrepreneurial history at MIT. So the 2015 study that probably a lot of you have seen, MIT realized that its alums have founded 30,000 active companies, and that these companies are employing 4.6 million people and generating revenue of $1.9 trillion, which is equivalent to the 10th largest economy in the world. Dropbox, HubSpot, E-Ink, Akamai are just 4 out of the 30,000. I'd almost pick these randomly. The 4 out of the 30,000 startups founded by MIT alums, and these are certainly foundational technologies that probably a lot of us use on a daily basis. But so what? That was 2015, and it's a little bit abstract to look at those numbers. What does it actually mean to corporates coming to MIT today? Specifically, what is the opportunity for corporates to engage with MIT startups today? And then furthermore, what constitutes an MIT startup and why does it matter? And I'm going to try to answer these questions by telling you the story of 4 startups that we worked with closely. So first one, Excelos, a predictive digital twin. What they do is they make a digital copy of a large asset, this floating oil platform, and then they can model maintenance, predictive maintenance on top of that. So they can say, okay, this area in red needs maintenance now, and by doing that, they can prolong the asset life by several years, which has a business impact of many millions of dollars over time. And so this is a startup that was founded in 2012 by a postdoc and an MIT master's student. And they founded it on top of 12 years of research at MIT. So this tells me that they were working on a really, really hard problem. From a corporate perspective, you might be looking at this and saying, they're de-risking the technology that I can try today. And so they built this next generation predictive digital twin technology that is 1,000 times faster. And corporates do and did care. First one, Shell, it came to MIT in 2015 and met with Excelos during an executive briefing. And if you don't know what that is, it's an event where a corporate brings their top 30 executives to campus to meet with faculty and to meet with startups. After that, they completed a 6-month pilot, and then 2 subsequent pilots followed, testing that technology in different asset types. 2018, Shell Ventures invested, and there was a broad product rollout at Shell. Another success story for Excellos. Doosan Heavy Industries, met at MIT 2017 via targeted introduction. So we do a lot of those every year, but this was just one of them. Signed a partnership for wind turbines, which was actually different than where they started initially. They were looking at a different use case. Quote from DHI executive, "Startup Exchange is unparalleled when it comes to connecting corporates to innovative startups. There's no question that the MIT connection led us to work closely with Excellos. It is a stamp of credibility that the technology has been tried and tested at the Institute." And so this stamp of credibility is something we hear a lot. MIT acting as a very effective filter. And this is from corporates that are going across the world to all the innovation centers, going to incubators, going to accelerators. They come back and say, MIT is the most effective filter. This is just one of those examples. Another startup, Poly6 4.0 additive manufacturing. They make a polymer that speeds up the development process of components that go into jet engines. Founded in 2015 by a postdoc from the Langer Lab. If you don't know Professor Langer, I would call him the most entrepreneurial faculty at MIT. What I mean by that, he's the person that has founded the most startups of any MIT faculty. There's certainly people in close second, but the number is about 30 last time I checked. Moderna is one of the startups, or one of the big companies now that he was involved in early on. Every so often at MIT, I encounter a startup that does something that defies logic. It seems magic. And so that's what Poly6 was for me, at least. And what they did is specifically took an orange and made that into polymer. So for me, at least, that qualifies as very close to magic tech. And they started They started as a solution looking for a problem. This is not uncommon here, and it's interesting because it's completely contrary to conventional wisdom. You're supposed to find a valuable problem and then make a solution. And so here at MIT, we're open to doing differently. And in fact, a lot of the founders are inspired to solve hard technical challenges. And they'll pursue those challenges without necessarily considering what the real world final impact is going to be. They want to have an impact, but when they start out, they might not know. And so through our office, Poly6 discovered a niche in aerospace defense. And this was a particular challenge that was responsible for a huge backlog in the industry. And then in 2019, they were acquired by Warburg Pincus, large private equity firm. Humatics, microlocation. So Humatics has a technology that allows them to determine where humans are in relation to robots and other moving components with pinpoint accuracy inside of a warehouse or a manufacturing facility. This company was founded in 2015 by Professor David Mendel from Astra at MIT, along with other people that had very deep expertise from oceans and space. And these are obviously very harsh environments, and communications is extremely difficult in those environments. But they were able to apply those learnings to sort of a multidisciplinary approach to solving this particular use case. Came to us as a tiny team and actually hired a great Sloan MBA as their first business person. And then through introductions that we facilitated, they established 3 successful ILP partnerships early on. And these corporates, I would say, had an opportunity to shape the direction of that development of the technology, of Humatics technology. Humatics invented 3D microlocation systems for mobility and manufacturing safety. So final one, Tulip, manufacturing operations platform. Tulip digitizes the workflow, if you will, of manufacturing facilities and logistics facilities by using scanners and other sensors. Founded 2014, 2 MIT PhDs in the Media Lab faculty. Like I said, platform for digitizing manufacturing and logistic processes. They had a successful partnership with Merck KGaA early on. They met at an MIT conference, actually, which led to an advanced discussion, a pilot, and a customer agreement. And they had a great initial impact very early on. This is early on in their life cycle, but still substantial impact for the corporate that was willing to come here and try something new. So they reduced Merck's training costs 57% and cut training time 90%. Let's cover one more. Defond ODE. Met 2017 through a target introduction that led to a pilot in Italy and a subsequent deal. This is what the Defond CIO had to say about it. Startup Exchange, ILP, were instrumental in facilitating our collaboration with Tulip, taking the time to understand our needs and connecting us to the right startup with the right solution to our problem. The way corporate relations is organized is that on one hand we have the ILP, and the people in the ILP understand the strategic priorities of their corporate members really, really well. On the other side of the house, we have Startup Exchange, and we spend time getting to know every single startup that registers with us to understand where they are today and what their product roadmap looks like in the future, which allows us then to make the right connection with the right people at the right level for the right problem. All right, and then there's a whole bunch more success stories. Formlabs, 3D printing, unicorn in 2018. Select, retail inventory technology, acquired by Nike 2019. Desktop Metal, 3D printing, IPO, New York Stock Exchange 2020. BioBright, scientific lab automation, acquired 2020. Ginkgo Bioworks, I'm sure you've heard of them, platform for programming cells, IPO 2021. Affectiva, they created a new category called Emotion AI, acquired by SmartEye this year. Onspecta, machine learning automation software, founded 2017, acquired 2021. So there are a lot of different success stories here. And if you look at them, they're all different types of technologies. And being acquired or exiting at different life stages. So some of them early on, someone sees some real value, grabs it early on, and later on, and some maturing to become bigger companies. All the companies I mentioned to date, to this point, have gone through our STEX 25 accelerator. This is different from a typical accelerator. It's a 12-month program focused on business development acceleration. And by looking at some of the statistics within STEX 25, I can explain a little bit more what it really means to be an MIT startup. So first of all, these are the most industry-ready startups from MIT, the Engine, and Lincoln Labs. So there's a very strong affiliation connection to the Engine and Lincoln Labs. They're part of our platform, let's say. One thing that's unique to STEX 25 is that you can't apply. You have to be nominated by a head of the department at MIT. So it really means that the best of the best rise to the top here. To date, 94 startups have participated over the last 4 or 5 years. And so now let's look at some of the numbers and what the numbers are going to tell us. So I would say number one, world-class technical founding teams. 40% have a faculty founder. So this is someone that's a world expert in their technical discipline. And if there's not a faculty founder, there's probably one of their grad students. So 85% have an MIT master's, PhD, or postdoc founder. Another unique characteristic is the fact that 43% are hybrid technology, meaning they have founders from many different departments. And they're coming together to solve a very difficult problem. So you might have someone from physics, you might have someone from bioengineering, someone from AI. They're coming together to solve these difficult problems. And it's important to, I think, always come at difficult problems from different angles. So this is what we see with STEX 25. They raised $4.2 billion in aggregate to date. 21% have at least one female founder. I'm going to run through the most recent cohort. So there are 6 startups here. These are the latest Just want to mention them quickly. Amogy, ammonia-based fuel source for heavy-duty trucks, planes, and ships. E25, biodiagnostic test with the digital platform, seeking license agreements, partnerships in life sciences, also looking at veterinary, food, agriculture. DeepCure, drug discovery AI with the world's largest molecular database, open to collaboration with large pharma. OPT industry, high precision, infinite role 3D printing technology with applications in cosmetics, diagnostics, blood storage. Pather tracks customers in retail stores, but they also have use cases in employee experience and operations. And then finally, Sync Computing, they optimize big data jobs on the cloud for financial services and life sciences and other heavy cloud users. These are all very eager to work with you. If you're interested, reach out to me or to your program director. But there's a whole lot more startups. So that was 25. There's another 1,375 startups that come from all departments at MIT, solving all types of problems for many, many different industries. They're all B2B, and they're all industry ready, by which I mean they have something you can pilot. These aren't concepts. They're not business plans. They have at least an early version of the technology that you can try. And so the keywords here represent some of the technologies they employ. And so it's a real diversity of technological solutions. We're not deep in just robotics or clean tech. We do that and a lot of other things. All right, and so we're adding 150 new startups every year. So if you're coming today because you're looking for a robotic solution for your factory, tomorrow you might be coming because you have a cybersecurity issue, and then next week because sustainability. So there's incredible volume here of new things. Let me cover very quickly here how corporations can engage with MIT startups. So between the two sides, the corporates and the startups, we do 600 targeted, highly vetted introductions per year. One way you can engage is by coming to events. Today there are no startups, but typically there are a lot of startups at our events. And so it's not only a way for you to learn about the latest themes and trends in the technology, you can start collaborating or building a relationship with startups that are working in those areas. Obviously, one-on-one meetings, we do a lot of these every year, hundreds. But essentially, you come and tell us, hey, this is my specific problem, who should I meet with? We also have an open innovation platform. This is where corporates can post their specific business challenges, their specific business problems, along with use cases. That goes out to our community of 1,400 startups and allows the corporate to capture solutions on the periphery or where they might be looking initially. You might see a solution that you just hadn't thought possible. All right, so some additional public partnerships. In fact, there's a lot of partnerships that we can't talk about, but these are public. And they take many different forms. So sometimes it's a license agreement, sometimes it's a direct investment, sometimes it's a pilot agreement. That's typically the first step, but that pilot agreement leads to a customer agreement. So in summary, why work with MIT startups? So I think number one, I would put world-class technical founding teams. These are the faculty founders, serial entrepreneurs, or their students, graduate students. Cross-disciplinary, it's deep tech that is industry-ready, can be piloted today. So that was my point about people from different departments coming together to solve these problems. And I think that's the point that Professor Swager was making as well, that there's such overlap of the different departments that there's bound to be collisions and people talking about what they're passionate. So number 3, breadth of technology solutions, 1,400 startups in all types of technologies, solving problems for all types of industries, and 150 new ones every year. All right, so the problems of today are going to be different than the problems of tomorrow. So if you start engaging today and you're patient in your approach, you're going to find something that is worthwhile. They're also very eager to work with you. I think this is an important point. The founders are incredibly disciplined, incredibly passionate to make a difference. And they realize that working with big corporates is a way to scale up their impact. And then finally, your challenge is not finding startups. That's easy. Your challenge is finding high-quality startups. So if you have any questions that come up later on, you want to talk about anything in addition to what I mentioned, that's my email address. Thank you very much for listening. And I think we have a few minutes for questions. So I should just read them here. Yeah, I can.
I'll read them.
Okay, yep.
I'll let you take center stage. So what's the difference, Marcus, between deep tech and what we used to call tech?
Yeah, great question. I guess I would think, and I think this is the common view in this ecosystem, that deep tech is solving a very hard technical challenge, a technical challenge that's going to have a huge impact in our world. It also takes a long time to become true, right? So it's a hard problem that it's not a consumer app, let's say. A lot of our startups are actually very old by conventional standards. People will say, okay, they're 5 years old, that's not a startup anymore. In fact, some of the more successful startups that we see are over a decade old. It just takes time to build the technology. That's what so let's go to the next one.
What advice do you have for corporates before engaging with startups?
Right. At the top of that advice, I would put, come with a problem, come with a real business problem, and be able to articulate that and explain the use cases associated with that business problem. And that allows you to have a more effective conversation to steer the startups in the right direction and find the right startups. If you're not at that stage, that's fine, okay. We facilitate exploratory conversations all the time, but I think it's fair to just say that, be transparent about where you are and what you're looking for. If you're still developing your strategy, just say that.
And I think we have one more question. I was pretty sure I saw.
So we got to just click on the button.
Yeah, somebody, here we are. What are some challenges that you have seen arise between startups and corporates?
Yeah, so obviously very different organizations, different clock speed, different structures. So there was a conversation I had recently with one of our Stex 25 founders, and he was telling me that he would have multiple meetings. He kept having meetings with this big corporation. And they're all the same. They're the same questions. Felt like he wasn't getting anywhere. And so I think that's a situation where the corporate could just be a little bit more transparent about where they are and either say, hey, this is interesting, we're building our strategy, and so you need to meet with a lot of different people for us to understand this. Or you can say, hey, we actually are very excited about this, and you're part of the process. Let us explain what that process is. Or you could just say, no, we're not serious about this. We're not there. No is, in fact, the second best answer to a startup. Yes is great, but maybe is the worst. All right, so if you can't say yes, maybe you should say no.